Hello, and welcome to our lockdown lectures. So today we have Chris Spicer here. Chris is a lecturer at the University of York Chemistry Department, and he's here to kind of answer some questions about his department and about his research. So Chris, what is it that you kind of do at the university?
So my group are interested in studying a class of materials known as biomaterials. We use our skills as organic chemists to try and design these materials in a way that allows us to regrow or repair damaged tissue. So tissues in your body when they suffer from disease or injury, we're trying to design materials that can help us to repair that damage.
So can you think of any kind of specific examples of how your research would be used in the outside world?
Yeah, so when people suffer from diseases like heart disease or osteoarthritis, or someone suffers from a stroke, for example, you get this catastrophic damage to their tissue. So specifically taking heart disease, the tissue that makes up your heart gets damaged and the body can't repair that. And that's what ultimately leads to the symptoms that people suffer from after they have a heart attack or are suffering from heart failure. So my research is really designed at creating materials that allow us to either grow new tissue in the lab and then implant it into a patient, or design materials that we can put directly into a patient who's suffering from one of these really debilitating diseases and trigger their tissues to regrow and the body to regenerate. So ultimately, we're trying to design ways that we can treat some of these really devastating illnesses that affect people all across the world.
And what are some big problems that still exist?
I think one of the biggest problems that people have in my field is that we're quite good now at being able to treat diseases in mice, for example. If a mouse is suffering from arthritis or has suffered a heart attack, for example, we're pretty good at being able to regenerate that tissue in a mouse. But a mouse's heart is the size of your little fingernail. And if you compare that to the size of a human heart, which is kind of this kind of size, being able to scale up the materials and the tissues that we grow from something that's incredibly small up to these larger organs is a really big problem. It's something that no one can really solve in the field at the moment.
What would you say is your favourite aspect of your research?
I think I really love the research that my group does is something that can ultimately go on to help people in the future. And that's something I'm really passionate about. But on a day-to-day level, I think the thing that I enjoy most about what we do is that it's really varied. We bring together a lot of different skills. So we are a chemistry group. Most of the people in my group are chemists, but we do a lot of other things which are coming from disciplines like biology or engineering or material science. And so we're constantly learning new skills, new techniques. We're learning about new areas the whole time. And I think that's what I enjoy the most about being a chemist is you never know everything. You're constantly learning, you're constantly developing, and it's finding out about all these new exciting areas every single day is something that I really enjoy.
So what reason would you give a student to pick chemistry at York?
So chemistry is often referred to as the central science, and that's because it really brings together all of the different sciences in a way. So physics and biology, chemistry almost sits halfway in between them. And so using chemistry, you can really design systems or do research that allows you to have a really big impact on the way we live our lives. So everything from medicine, creating drug molecules, or some of the research we do on biomaterials, through to electronic screens that you're probably watching this video on, through to batteries, or through to new textiles. All of this is underlined by really, really interesting chemistry. So as a young student picking what to do, I think chemistry gives you a really broad insight to the way a lot of things work in the world, but also a lot of opportunities to really influence how the world is going to look in 20 or 30 years. And I'm obviously very biased as a you two, but I think York's a fantastic place to study chemistry because it's a real mix of having really great staff who are amazing researchers, but who are also really passionate about teaching and the way that they inspire the next generation of chemists that are coming through. And that's not true at every institution. I think it's something that York does really well. And I like to think it's a very welcoming place for new students, and a very friendly and enjoyable place to study chemistry.
And who is your favourite chemist and why?
A chemist called Carolyn Bertozzi, who works at Stanford now, and she is just this amazing, incredibly inspiring scientist. She was the person who really pioneered this field of bioorthogonal chemistry, which is an area of chemistry where basically you're trying to do chemistry in the presence of biological systems. And I remember during the first year of my PhD, I read a paper from her group where she basically did some really interesting chemistry inside a zebrafish. And it just blew my mind that she could do that. The amount of control and the elegance of the chemistry that she designed. But she's gone on to continue to develop that field, and she'll almost undoubtedly win a Nobel Prize for it in the future. But she's an incredibly inspiring woman for a large number of reasons, and the chemistry is only one part of that.
So on a more serious note, how has the current COVID situation affected you and your work?
It's been tough. It's been a very different 3 or 4, well, almost 4 months now since we first went down into shutdown. So obviously it was very difficult. Our research lab shut down, so all of my group have been working from home, and I've been working from home as well with my 1-year-old daughter for company, which has made trying to do any work quite interesting. But I'd like to think that there'll be some benefits that come out of it. I think from my research side, it's given us an opportunity to maybe take a step back from what we've been doing for the last couple of years and think a little bit more in detail about what we're trying to do, and also come up with some really new and exciting ideas. And it's not often that you have the opportunity to take that step back. From a teaching perspective, that's a big part of my role and something that I really enjoy. And I think that's been okay during COVID. There have been difficulties trying to translate everything online. We've been giving all of our tutorials and all of our lectures online. But I think there's some really interesting things that we've learned as a group of teaching staff that's really going to improve our teaching practice moving forward, not only for online teaching, but things that we've learned that work well whilst we've been on lockdown that we're going to be able to implement into the curriculum at York for the next few years that will hopefully improve the teaching experience and the learning experience for students who are coming into York. So it's been tough. I don't want to do it again. But hopefully there will be some positives that come out of it. And I'm really glad that the labs are back open now in York. We have our students and our researchers back in there, and it's now very exciting to be seeing the work that they're doing, even while I'm working from home still.
What moment would you say you are proudest of in your scientific career?
I think it was probably the first time I ever published a scientific paper. So this was in the second year of my PhD. We took all of the research that I'd been doing up until that point, and we'd had some really interesting results, and we wanted to send that out to the scientific community and say, look, what we're doing, we think this is really interesting. And I think having that validation of what you've done as a researcher is interesting to other people, and getting that into a journal and seeing it published, seeing that in the journal in paper copy for the first time is an incredibly proud moment. And it's still one of my favorite papers, and seeing that other people have then taken on the work that we did and they've developed it and they've taken it further, people all across the world, and seeing them cite our work and reference it, talk about it at conferences, that's something that I'm still incredibly proud of, the work that we did.
What other research is going on in the chemistry department that you'd contribute towards if you could?
So there's lots of research going on in similar areas to me. So in the area of more biological chemistry, so researchers like Martin Fassioni and Liana Willems and Alison Parkin are doing really interesting stuff in that chemical biology field. From an area that's completely different to what I do now. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for atmospheric chemistry, which is weird because I was terrible at it as an undergrad, but I always find it really interesting. And so I think if I had to pick something completely different to what I do, I'd go and work over in Wackle, where they have one of the best atmospheric chemistry facilities in the country, to really study what's going on and how what's going on in the atmosphere is influencing global warming and climate change on a day-to-day basis around us.
So that's all the questions that we have for you. Thank you for talking about your research. So thank you very much.